Welcome back to the Church of God. I'm your host, RL, Reverend. Now, the Bible history was interesting, but what's that tell you about the end of days? The end of days is here because a lot of things have happened in those time frames from 1380 when Wycliffe brought out his Bible to now. You could say, oh, well, what's changed? Well, for almost 600 plus years, 700 years, man was supposed to have the Bible right there. But the church was losing a battle because they wanted to keep it corrupted and etc. And back then it was a good thing to know, but it was all, you know, certain things was done. Everyone had their own Bible to work with. But things got worse in the time when persecution, where a Bible couldn't be in your home. You know, they persecuted Christians that were hungered for the Word. They went to church every week, but they wanted to read their own version at home, when they wanted, how they felt, etc. But no, you know, they didn't. The church didn't want it. They wanted you to go there, pay your tithes, and tell your sins of what you've done. Well, nowadays, if you look at the statistics, there's about a billion, 1.5 billion Muslims, 1.5 billion Catholics, and like 2 billion Hindus, right? That's 2 billion, 1.5, that's 5 billion. So let's just say there's 9 billion people. So over half the people are religious in some ways. And then you got the rest of them. Let's just say 1 billion of them, miscellaneous, are 2 billion of them. So that's 7 billion people, maybe 8 billion people, that are religious in some way, whether it be Protestant, Taoist, Confucian, etc. Then you sit there and you say, okay, well, I understand, but what's next? Well, the problem is, with all these people, they're going to conflict. They're going to say their religion's the best. Well, the Bible states, beware of false prophets. Well, do you see anyone saying, no, Muhammad came down and said he was a prophet? No, I can't say yay or nay. I'm not Muslim. I'm not going to say, oh, the Muslims got to do this or that. No, to each their own. I'm only talking about my faith, Christian, Presbyterian. Now, when it comes to this, God gave it to us for a reason. We're not supposed to piss it away. Back in the old days, I've been reading about the old days where people paid money to have sex. Prostitution, it's always going on over the eons. People don't talk about it much. You don't hear it nowadays, but you can hear people say, oh yes, prostitution is this, prostitution's that. Let's have sex and I'll pay you for it. No, thing is that is part of fornication or living unclean. Yes. Same with some drugs, some alcohol. Well, if you drink in moderation, you're fine. I mean, I drank Christmas Day almost 3 bottles of wine. I wasn't feeling good the next morning. That wasn't moderation. That was just pure stupidity. Now, comes to you all, the viewers. What does that mean exactly for you, the viewers? Well, if you're watching my series about Bible history and what's going to happen to the end of days, the end of days is clearly in Revelations. Jesus even talked about it. There's going to be rumors of wars and etc. and this happening and that happening, but it won't be the end. For example, someone was asking me a while ago why the world's gone to heck in a handbasket. Some people said, well, this can't happen to our beloved country. It can. God says it's time. It will be done. For example, for you Bible people out there watching this, I appreciate you watching. Gun control. God says it's time. They'll be all rounded up. There's no way we can do a damn thing about it. Then there's the other things. They're legalizing many things. A lot of people say, oh, well, it's sad that we the people have to deal with and embrace certain things that the Bible is condemning. Same-sex marriages. Well, the Old Testament talks about same-sex marriages. The New Testament talks about same-sex marriage, or not. Let me rephrase that. The Old Testament talks about homosexual acts. The New Testament talks nothing about homosexual acts. It talks about fornications. Or in Romans 1:24 to 32, it talks about how men and women are desiring each other. But that's the way the Romans were when Paul was around. They could desire each other, and they didn't know that there was one God. Does it make it right? Well, in Paul's eyes, no, because Paul was a Pharisee. We can only judge and say Paul was an idiot, but his writings got in the Bible. You just have to translate it for yourself. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to say yes or no. Then you got the other people. Turn around and say, oh, well, I was watching Jerry Springer or this or that, and we see transsexuals, the ones having a sex change. Well, to each their own. They want to live that way, fine. I had a guy once tell me that as a man goes through sex change, you better stay with a man because that's what he accepts. But if a woman goes through sex change and becomes a man, they better not be still attracted to men, they better be attracted to women. Otherwise, it don't work. Well, to each their own. My coffee. So, while we're sitting here on Brass Tacks on the thing of the end of the world, end of days and etc. in the Bible, and the history of the Bible and etc., you gotta ask yourself, what happened to it caused the end of days? Simple. End of days was simple. It was time. Think of it. World War I and II broke out. Things happened. Crap hit the fan. Back then, the Pope did not want anyone to have a Bible. Anyone that did was declared a heretic. He wanted your money. Back then, it was a profitable thing. The Jesus business was very profitable. Yeah. There was a movie once. It was called Jesus by Jeremy Sisko. The guy that played Satan was also the guy that played the bad guy, Dr. Terry Nichols, in the movie The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. He said, the Jesus business is going to be booming for years to come, Jesus. I'm sorry to say, but the guy was right. But, why was it? Because he wanted to let people know that, everyone, and back then, maybe Jesus and God will forgive those people in the past that did not know that they had to pay an indulgent sin because the Pope wanted the money because there was no Bible for common man. But here's where it gets interesting. Let me get back to you with part